before footprints, before the moon, before humanity touched another world, there was fear, competition, and a race that would change history forever. Two superpowers, one impossible destination, and a challenge so ambitious, it would force humanity to leave Earth for the very first time. This is Apollo 11. By the late 1950s, the world was divided between two superpowers. On one side stood United States, on the other, the Soviet Union. Their armies never directly faced each other in open war. But above Earth, a different battle had already begun. In 1957, the Soviets launched the first artificial satellite into orbit, changing history forever. The message was clear. Space was no longer science fiction. It was power. It was technology. It was global influence. And for the first time in human history, the sky itself had become a battlefield. Every launch, every mission, every orbit became part of something much larger than exploration. It became a race for the future of humanity. In 1961, the United States was behind. The Soviets had launched the first satellite, the first animal, the first human in space. America needed more than a response. It needed a vision. That vision came from John F. Kennedy. Standing before the world, he made a promise that sounded almost impossible. America would send a man to the moon and return him safely to Earth before the decade was over. At the time, the technology barely existed. Computers were primitive. Rockets exploded regularly. Navigation systems were still experimental. But the challenge had been spoken. And once spoken, history had no choice but to catch up. Once the promise was made, there was no turning back. NASA began one of the most ambitious engineering programs in human history. More than 400,000 engineers, scientists, machinists, mathematicians, and technicians would contribute to a single mission. Entire factories were built. New computers were designed. Materials that had never existed before were created. Every bolt, every wire, every fuel valve, every line of code had to work perfectly. Because failure would not happen in a laboratory. It would happen hundreds of thousands of kilometers from Earth. Apollo was no longer just a mission. It was humanity learning how to leave its home planet. To reach the moon, humanity needed a machine unlike anything ever built. That machine became the Saturn V. Standing over 100 meters tall, it was more than a rocket. It was controlled violence. Millions of moving parts, thousands of sensors, enough fuel to power one of the most energetic launches in human history. Its engines burned hotter than volcanic fire. Its power shook the ground for kilometers. And yet every explosion inside that machine had to remain perfectly controlled. Because inside its narrow command module would sit 3 human beings, trusting mathematics, engineering, and each other with their lives. The moon was no longer a dream. It was becoming reachable. July 16, 1969. Before sunrise, thousands gathered along the Florida coastline. Millions watched through televisions around the world. And inside the command module of Apollo 11, 3 astronauts waited in silence. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. Below them stood the most powerful machine humanity had ever built, Saturn V. Then the countdown reached 0. Engines ignited. The ground shook. Fire erupted beneath the rocket. And for the first time in human history, a machine carrying people toward another world began leaving Earth. Within minutes, Apollo 11 was traveling faster than sound. Then faster than bullets. Then faster than any human had ever traveled before. Stage after stage separated with perfect precision. Fuel tanks emptied. Engines shut down. New engines ignited. And slowly, Earth began shrinking outside the spacecraft windows. Oceans became patterns. Continents became shapes. Clouds became white spirals drifting across blue darkness. For the astronauts inside, something profound was happening. Humanity was not simply flying higher. For the first time, humanity was leaving home. The journey to the moon would take nearly 3 days. No rescue missions, no backup spacecraft, no turning back. Between Earth and the moon stretched nearly 400,000 kilometers of silence. Outside the spacecraft, there was no atmosphere, no sound, no up, no down, only darkness and stars that never twinkled. Inside the command module, every system mattered. Oxygen, power, navigation, temperature. One mistake could end everything. Yet Apollo 11 continued moving forward, guided by mathematics, radio signals, and one of the most primitive computers ever used in deep space. On July 20, 1969, the lunar module, named Eagle, separated from the command module and began descending toward the moon. But almost immediately, problems began. Computer alarms flashed. Fuel levels dropped. The landing zone was covered in dangerous rocks. And with seconds of fuel remaining, Neil Armstrong took manual control. Slowly, carefully, he guided Eagle across the lunar surface, searching for a safe place to land. Then, after billions of years of silence, the moon heard human voices. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." Hours after landing, the cabin of Eagle remained silent. Outside waited a world no human had ever touched. Inside, Neil Armstrong prepared for a moment that would outlive every nation, every generation, and perhaps even Earth itself. Pressure systems were checked. Oxygen levels confirmed. Suits sealed. Then the hatch slowly opened. Beyond it was only black sky, silver dust, and absolute silence. Humanity had arrived, but no human had yet taken the first step. Slowly, Armstrong descended the ladder. One step, then another. Beneath him lay lunar dust untouched for billions of years. Then, at 10:56 p.m., he placed his boot onto the surface of the moon. In that instant, one species crossed a boundary that had existed since the birth of the solar system. His words traveled across nearly 400,000 kilometers of space and into history forever. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Soon, Buzz Aldrin joined Armstrong on the surface. Together, they walked across another world. They planted instruments, collected samples, raised a flag, tested the strange movement of low gravity. And with every footprint, every photograph, every radio transmission, humanity proved something extraordinary. Earth was no longer the limit. For 21 unforgettable hours, 2 humans stood on a world that had watched our planet for billions of years. When Apollo 11 returned to Earth, the mission was over. But humanity was not the same. For the first time, our species had stood on another world, looked back at Earth, and seen home as a small blue sphere suspended in darkness. Apollo 11 moon landing was never just about the moon. It was proof that impossible journeys can become history. And from that moment forward, the universe no longer felt unreachable. It felt closer.